Hey, business owner, are you struggling to spend your time efficiently, especially when you are trying to work on your business and do your own marketing? Do you feel like you are constantly in the weeds with a million things to do and 100 browser tabs open, both literally on your computer and in your mind? Then this episode is for you. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Janae. And in this episode of the Big Bad Marketing podcast, we are going to talk through some practical mindset shifts, some self awareness techniques, some ways that you can upskill your approach to using your time wisely so you stop struggling, stop feeling like you don't have the skills to run your business, and start operating from the place of big bad business owner.
Let's do
Let's do
this.
it.
All right, business owner, if you, like us, feel like there are a lot of days where you grab your coffee, you come and you stand at your desk if you're me, you sit at your desk and
You sit on your
you
desk.
start to comb through the to-do lists and you open up your inbox and you're looking at the emails and you've got the orders and the services that you need to fulfill to operate your business and to continue to make money. And then separately, you have this whole list of operational things, marketing things, sales things that you need to do to continue to get new customers in your business and sort of keep the train moving in many ways. And honestly, for me, there are a lot of days where I sit down with my many to do lists to try to consolidate them into a single to do list. And I just feel absolutely overwhelmed. And sometimes that can manifest as me going to get another cup of coffee because I literally just can't deal, right? Like do you
Oh yeah.
procrastinate in that way?
Oh yeah. I literally was just like, we are running on adrenaline and caffeine right now to get through all of the things on these lists. And maintaining the list becomes an item on the list in itself.
Yes. And luckily, I think now that we are a little over a year in business, we've worked with each other directly a lot. I think we're getting better at three key things that make all of this feel a lot easier. So, the things we're going to talk about in this podcast are how we take steps to more effectively prioritize the, the lots of work that make their way on our to do lists, knowing when to delegate that work to each other, to other people, or even when to not do it anymore. And
Boundaries.
then accepting that not everything is going to be perfect and not everything requires our undivided attention. Some things can
Ooh.
slip, some things will slip, and that's okay. So, today we're going to talk through those three things and strategies that we use at Big Bad Marketing to more effectively manage our time.
Yes. And Brooke, I'm just thinking about the way that stress manifests for me, of exactly like you're saying, you feel overwhelmed and then you procrastinate. Like, the stress, and you described and defined this once for me from something you heard in another podcast, of like feeling like there are more things on my list to do than time in the day to do them or resources to make that happen. And a lot of that does play into exactly our first item on this list, which is prioritizing, which I think like the sub point of that is reprioritizing, constantly reprioritizing. And a word I've come to really love, which is juggling. And a juggling act is very much like keeping the balls in the air, but knowing which one you need to grab at which moment and how high you need to throw it, and sort of an understanding of like where you can bide more time or more resources and where you need to act quickly and move things across a finish line, however abstract or arbitrary that may be.
I love that. And as you're saying that, I'm picturing one of those circus clowns that's juggling the bowling pins and they've got like 10 in the air and you're like, how are they keeping them all up? That's incredible. How are they continuing to catch them? And that's kind of what it feels like some days as a business owner. So being able to prioritize our work and really say, okay, I only have two hands. So which pins am I going to grab next? And what can I sort of toss out of my court? And what can I shuffle off to someone else and sort of keep the ball moving, but not necessarily with me? So, Janae, we talk all the time about the Eisenhower matrix. So break down what that is and how we use that in our work.
Sure. So the Eisenhower matrix is literally a visual, it's a grid, and it helps us to categorize different items that come our way, practical and like energetic and like not arbitrary, intangible, let's say. And it helps us to say, what do we need to do? What do we need to hand off to someone else based on importance and urgency? So the grid is divided into four quadrants where the top line is telling us, is it urgent or is it not urgent? Meaning time wise, do we need to do this quickly or do we have more time to do this later? And then the upward row, so the column, I think the normal people call that a column, is divided into important or not important. So that's um, basically being able to understand the value that this is going to drive. And so, man, I'm trying to think back to my math days. That the upper left corner, so top row, furthest to the left box, that's like, what is that? A positive positive when you're mapping coordinates on a chart?
I have no idea where that train of thought is going. I was just thinking about the term quadrant,
Okay.
like upper left quadrant.
Yes.
I don't
So
know
up,
positive, positive.
I okay. You are our math lady, so I'm giving you a little finger mush.
I'll look it up after the show.
Yeah. Okay. But that corner is the positive positive of yes, it's important and yes, it's urgent. And that means in terms of prioritization, do it and do it quickly. Do it today if you can. Do it now. That should be like of the highest priority. And then
And
as you
so,
move, oh, go
what
ahead.
might that be for the listener? Like, I think in our case for Big Bad Marketing, that's like revenue generating tasks. That's like getting leads in the door, things that we have to do today, right now, in order to have a business tomorrow. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Like fulfilling orders, offering the deliverables, completing the deliverables by the due dates that you've created with your clients, however your business works. It's, yeah. So for us, Brooke, that often looks like client work, things that we owe to our clients takes priority over writing our newsletter, for example, which is not to say it's not important or that it's not urgent, but on the scale, on our litmus test of which is the most valuable thing we need to do right now, it's often client work at the very top. And then after that, just you hit the nail on the head is getting more people into our business, getting more clients, taking all the steps required to do that.
Great. What is the
Okay.
next quadrant?
Next quadrant, we're going to go over to the right. We're going to stay at the top. We're going to go over to the right. So this is, I think this is where it's like positive, negative on a chart. Man, we are struggling with that. I'll figure that out later. But that's where it's not urgent. So there's less of a time pressure, but it is still important, meaning that it drives a lot of value to get that done. So the way that we would approach things that fall into that category are scheduling them, are putting them on our calendar so that we remember to do it later. So we're not saying this is the most important thing, but it is still really important. But it's not today important, it's tomorrow, it's next week important, and we will get to it. And eventually then that item in theory will shift over to box 1, which is do it now.
Yeah, love that. And that, like you were saying, might be writing our email newsletter, which maybe today, as we record this on December 22nd, isn't the most pressing thing. But by the time the 29th and 30th roll around, that is going to be in our urgent and important column if it's not already done, because that has to go out. So,
Right on the first of the month.
absolutely. So it's interesting to see how things will shift through the quadrants as they
Mm-hmm.
become
Mm-hmm.
more timely and necessary with that urgency factor.
Yep. This Eisenhower metrics is so great for sort of a daily check in, and you hold up all the items on the to do list in the context of where does it fit today? What do I need to do today? And sometimes, even on an hourly basis, this changes based on what we've already gotten done, what's gotten delayed, things like that. So, to think that this is a fixed model is inaccurate. And what we really want to do is know that this is a tool to help us with our evolving living tasks.
Love it.
Um, yeah, so not urgent but important. Excellent example is stuff that helps us move things forward. Wow, that's so vague. Tasks that help us move things forward towards getting new leads, right? Which we've already identified is important and urgent, but maybe it's not as pressing as getting a deliverable to a client that we have already established. And of highest importance to us is maintaining that relationship in a really good way. Over delivering, under promise, over deliver.
There you go.
Okay, so let's take it down to the bottom leftmost quadrant. That's where now you have the negative positive, which is it's not important, but it is urgent. So it really needs to get done, but it drives less value. So in our case, often this is going to be something like creating internal deliverables, internal content for our own business, which is really is less important. So there's less value that's going to come from it, but we still want to keep up with a cadence we've agreed to or a schedule.
Yeah, and that sense of urgency that says, this might not be client, deliverable status, but if we don't get these things done, there will be problems for our business, right? Down the road. Like
Mm-hmm.
if we ignore things in this quadrant just because they're not immediately urgent, then we're not going to move the needle. Like that's where I sort of see our more like long-term goals playing out in that quadrant, at least for our particular business.
Yep, and that quadrant is aptly titled delegate. So that's where we say, hey, it's not as important, but it is needed quickly. Let's pass this to someone else or a different resource or pull in like let's excuse my silliness here, but like let's throw some money at this so this can get completed on time, but acknowledging that it is not as important and value driving. And that's how we can make that distinction between we need to do this right now and it's still going to drive value now, but it's less value. So there's less, let's say, weight on it.
Yeah. And maybe that's because it's not making money at this immediate
Sure,
moment. And that's what we
sure.
find in our business. And I think in running our business, this is actually the quadrant that we struggle with the most. So, we're going to talk in our
Mm.
next point about delegation and how we are finding ways to do that. But that can be a really challenging thing. So, let's go ahead and cover off the final quadrant.
Yes. And I also want to share a metaphor, bringing it back to the juggling thing, but hold that thought. And let's get to the bottom corner, which is where you have your negative, negative, if you're looking at this from a mathematical grid, right? So this is quadrant 4, which is not only is it not urgent, but it's not important. So there's no time constraint on it. And there's very limited, if any, value to this. And this is the quadrant where ideas go to die. This is the quadrant where you set a boundary, you eliminate it, and you just stop doing it. It's not bringing value and it doesn't have a time stamp on it to be delivered. So you can basically just cross it off the list.
So, what might an example be of something that is not urgent, not important, and we are like, okay, you know what? We're just going to stop doing that.
Making videos of our dog for Instagram comes to mind.
Yeah, social media was honestly the first thing that came to mind. Like, figuring out trendy reels for social, I think just falls
Yes.
to the literal bottom of the list to the point that we're like, we cannot even spend time on that right now.
Yes. Or like researching new software tools that might help certain processes, but they're super niche and we don't really need them right now, like a specialty video editing tool, right? That's only going to facilitate those social posts that we
Right.
are already in agreement that we don't need. Um, yeah, so this is going to be those things that maybe are also, I hate to say this, but like the big dreams that you have. So for us, this is currently write a book. And it's not
Yeah.
to say it's eliminated forever, but it is, let's say, in a very deep hold pattern so that we will get to it eventually in the right year and age and stage of our business, but we don't need to focus any energy on it right now. It's not going to bring value right now, and it's just not timely right now.
Yeah. And if you feel like you really like these things, it can be really hard to be like, ooh, I don't like where that fell in the quadrant because that's something I actually quite enjoy doing. So it can be hard to release those things truly. But stepping into our point number 2 about knowing when to delegate things, I think a really important part of delegation is deciding, okay, not only what should I delegate, but what should I keep for myself? What are the things that I really enjoy that are also lucrative for my business? Like, where does it
Mm-hmm.
make sense to put my time and energy? And then what can I afford to pay somebody else to do? What can I get somebody else to do for me? But really importantly, what should I not do? Even if it's temporarily, just how do I save my energy and preserve my focus by saying, I can delegate these things or I could just not do them at all.
Sure, X them off the list or hand them
Yeah.
over. And so that's where this visual of juggling, right? And I loved your example, like juggling 10 pins. And then if you think about how we can expand on that analogy, right? It's like then you throw some knives into the mix, and maybe those become more important because they're a little bit more dangerous. Or then you throw like balls that are on fire, and those become more urgent, but they're less important, right? Like these are all things that you are constantly playing around with and moving around and weighing them against this scale of what's most urgent, what's most important. And then in the same vein, like, hey, let me tap in the fireman to come catch these balls on fire because I'm not going to be able to do that effectively, but the right resource will be able to do a really good job on the right time frame.
Yes, absolutely. And we have to be able to recognize the things that we are comfortable delegating. So, one of the things, Janae, that we talk about a lot is what is your zone of genius? What are the things that we should be doing because we are skilled at them? They make sense for our business. Maybe our business is built around it. So, in the case of Big Bad Marketing, our expertise in marketing and small business operations, like that is literally our business, and we are the ones to do that. So, we cannot delegate our client meetings. We cannot delegate at this point in time our sales process. We cannot delegate creating our offers and pricing our products and being in those things because that is at the heart of what we are doing here. We can't delegate recording this podcast because that is at the heart of what we do, right? Because it's
We
about
get someone
us.
else in here like, I'm Janae.
And I'm broke.
That's great.
Yes. So we do talk about, okay, should we do this? Like, should we keep this on our plate? Is this in our zone of genius? And then obviously there are some tasks that are like, we just have to do this right now because we can't delegate them to other people. And maybe that's a financial thing, right? Like right now, we do have to manage the payroll and categorize our expenses and do these things because we're not at a point yet where we can delegate that to someone else. But are
But I
there
think we
areas?
acknowledge that that's not our area of genius. That's actually exactly what I
Totally.
wanted to share is like when the resource when the resources match where we need to be to grow the business, that is one of the first things that will come off our plate, right? Like running the accounting of this business and the bookkeeping that will get handed to a person who that's in their zone of genius, and it takes it out of our do it later because it is important, but it's not urgent
Yeah.
box, so to speak. And small business owner listener, like if you are not sure how to prioritize and you don't feel like you have the skills to maintain prioritizing and delegating and figuring out how to move things forward for your business, you will find a ton of value in our monthly newsletter, which Brooke, you alluded to before, but you can sign up for that at www.bigbadmarketing.com/newsletter. And every month we will send you tips and ideas, strategic direction, tactical guidance, a couple really bad jokes that we make up so that you can start moving the needle and feel like you have these skills that we're here sharing, what's working for us. And the hope is that you'll be able to get something out of that that helps you move forward and feel more skilled, more confident, more prepared yourself.
Absolutely. And in our newsletter and in everything we do at Big Bad Marketing, we really try to strike this balance of tactical marketing things that you can do alongside these types of mindset shifts and more intangibles and more vibes based things sometimes where we are sort of offering insight into how we work in hopes that you can take bits and pieces of this and use it to make your business better. So as we think about delegating, we encourage you to ask, what are the most important aspects of running my business? So, literally, just make a list. And that could look like, here's what I do every day. And then go
Mm.
back to that list and say, okay, what do I have to keep? And maybe that is like because I cannot afford to outsource it because it requires my special expertise. And then go through and say, these are the things that I could outsource to someone else. These are repeatable tasks where I can give someone clear instructions and they could do this. Maybe not exactly the way I do, but it could be close enough to be acceptable. And then start to consider and set some budgets around these things so that you can begin to look for opportunities to delegate.
I love that. And I think often, Brooke, when we're working with clients, what we run into is folks who are doing everything. And it is literally that is preventing their business growth. And I think we've had that instance happening to us where like we are trying to do so many things that are often the working in the business. So delivering client pieces, meeting in our coaching calls, we're doing the work in the business. And so it makes it hard for us to work on the business and build out the workflows, build out the structures. So it creates this really harsh bottleneck where we can't hand something off because we have not created that repeatable system or that workflow. And that's why we have created so many different templates to help ourselves really navigate those spaces. We've dedicated ourselves to mapping our workflows so that there's a clear written out system where and just for us to where I can email you, here is the method exactly step by step that I'm using to write our newsletter and publish it and send it out, right? So that then you can just take my document, I don't even have to be there, and you can do everything step by step. The idea being that eventually we'll be in a place where then we can send that document to someone else and they will be able to complete it so we can focus on our next most important thing.
Yes, and operationalizing your business in these ways and defining the workflows, at least what we're finding is putting in the time and effort to do that early is going to have benefits for us later. When we do have then the full book of business, we are serving clients, we are making enough money that we can afford to go ahead and delegate some of these things. We're already going to have those systems in place to make that a lot easier. And I think this stage where you're in that in between where I'm doing everything, I'm overloaded, I'm overwhelmed, my plate is full, I'm not sure what to do next, that can be where a lot of businesses go to die because it just feels like you're treading water and you're swimming
Insurmountable.
and yeah, it feels totally insurmountable and like you're never going to get to where you're going. But business owner, we see you. We are here to encourage you. And one of the things that helps us in these moments is that third point we're talking about in this episode, which is just acceptance that things are not always going to be perfect and trying to pivot away from our perfectionist tendencies to really give ourselves grace in those moments of saying, you know what? Not everything on this list is going to get done, and that's okay.
I think it showcases so much authenticity too, because like listener, the fact that you're listening to this and thinking about upskilling and like being willing to hear some ideas of how we're doing that, like it just shows that you are dedicated, you're passionate about what you do. It's part of your values to get better at it, to be able to continue sharing that thing you're passionate about. So I just really appreciate when I'm working with folks through a business, whatever it is, whether that's in my personal life, I'm working with a small business, or in a business to business capacity, where they're like, hey, we want to scale this down a little bit, or we want to adjust the due dates because we really want to be able to deliver something that is the highest quality. And we are unraveling some complexities that we didn't forecast when we initially scoped this. Man, I'm using all the digital marketing jargon, business jargon
Jargon,
right now.
yes.
Um, but basically just being able to like be humble and call yourself out in a really professional way, but just like I'm going to need a little more time on this, and accepting that that's okay. And that's where that we, I think all three of these points, the prioritizing, the delegating, the accepting, are so interrelated, because when you can be authentic, when you can be honest and humble in that kind of way and just say, hey, I need a bit more time on this, you can go back to your Eisenhower matrix. You can go back to your prioritization and say, okay, we're late on this. How do we most effectively reprioritize all the things on this list so that this can get done in the most efficient, high quality way and not compromise?
Yeah. And something that we are constantly reminding ourselves of is for all of these internal things where we are working on the business, nobody knows about the deadlines but us. So we have this big plan where by the first, we're going to launch this new landing page and this new offer, and it's all going to be tied together, and the emails are going to be in place. And the reality is, nobody knows that. Nobody knows that but us, right? And business owner, it can be kind of helpful to understand that in those moments because I do think, especially if you're an overachiever type of person like Janae and I are, that it can be easy to push yourself to arbitrary deadlines when they don't matter, right? Like, of course, we need to set deadlines. Of course, we need to keep the train moving. Of course, we can't just wait and hope that eventually we'll have enough time to get these things done. So, we need to have deadlines, but pushing it by a week or 2 weeks is not the end of the world when life happens and other things come up. So, really just trying to internalize that for ourselves of like, these are self imposed deadlines and nothing is going to happen if we have to push a little bit.
Could not agree more. And then I guess another element of the perfection piece and the acceptance piece is less about time and more about quality. And I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on that because part of perfectionism as it plays out through me is like, we can't send things out that are not perfect or of like 99.9% quality. And I think that that in itself has to be reassessed against certain rubrics of like, is this a client deliverable? If yes, then yeah, it does need to be as close to perfect as possible. Is this an internal process document that only us two are going to see? Then probably no, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be, dare I say, in the 75th percentile of like, it's pretty good, it's pretty close. And we will work together over time to get it to be closer to the 100 mark, but it's just in the iteration it's in, we don't need to put that much time or effort into it. We just need to get it done, which is, that's what is that? Rory's sticker in our little sticker pack is done is better than perfect.
Yeah, I think that was Jack.
Jack?
Actually, Jack is
Might
the
be
done is
Jack.
better than perfect guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think so much of this acceptance piece and the prioritization and the delegation are just a function of how long you've been doing these things. So the things that we know today after over a year in business, we can now feel confident in prioritizing and saying this is where we should strive for perfection. This is where it doesn't matter. But a year ago, everything had to be perfect because we were just so new to it and we're just being ourselves and like the
Everything was
longer.
important, everything was urgent.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, Eisenhower Matrix be damned, we were going to get everything done with the utmost 100% quality. And there is something that happens, I think, where you fall into this cadence of, okay, we're just slow and steady grind on this thing. Not everything's going to get done today, but if this week we can make progress on the big rocks, that's an accomplishment. And if over time and if over this quarter we can reflect and see all the things that we've done, then that has to be enough for us. But I feel like we're no longer rushing to build the business and we're saying, you know what? We're settling in. We know how to do this thing and we're just in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. It's very much that we set these, I think I've mentioned this before, but like aggressive goals, if you will, which feel actually very reasonable compared to when we were in agency jobs. And the goals that were aggressive were, in my opinion, just absurd goals, right? Like I think that what we're doing is using a schedule and timelines and project trackers and these sort of quote unquote aggressive goals to get our processes closer to a finish line. But we are also in real time adjusting and reprioritizing and focusing on the next most important thing while trying to do our best to keep track with those goals and like adjusting them as needed and not being rigid about sort of the boundary that we've created about this needs to be done on this day. But it's like if you shoot high, if you aim high, then you're more likely to get there than if you're like, oh, we'll get to that and you don't set a goal or you give yourself 6 months, because then guess what happens? 5 months and 10 days in, you're like, oh, damn, I was supposed to do this.
That is the truth. And listener, if you have yet to do your yearly planning
Ooh.
for 2026, definitely go check out the last episode and grab yourself the template to do that work, because that can hopefully help you as you look at what to prioritize and delegate in the upcoming year. And just we hope that, like us, you can squash your perfectionist tendencies a little bit in some areas, just to give yourself a little bit of breathing room and say, you know what, done is better than perfect. It's okay to move forward with this, because I'm the only person that's ever going to see it, right?
And Brooke, we are such overzealous types. Like, I just want to deeply relate with business owner, listener, like, especially if you're doing this on your own. Like, there's so much to do. And the more you break things down, the more to do there is. And it's okay in this moment to pat yourself on the back for how far that you have come, and be confident and proud of where you are and where you're going, even if that's going to be slow and steady progress. Because, Brooke, that's, I think, like a standby value for us is let's build sustainably, not let's build really quickly on faulty foundations and then burn to the ground, or have to like come in and constantly patch broken things up. We're like, let's just do it right the first time. And I guess that at the bottom of all of this is like what I feel most resonant about sharing. And maybe someone gets something from that and feels inspired to be like, oh, hey, that's right. Let's build the structures and the framework first, and not get so bogged down in details and thinking ahead and not being able to really get anywhere in a sustainable way because it falls apart later. Like, we're two people, but most of the time a small business is like one owner running the show. And so give yourself some credit. You're just one person. You can only get so many things done, and that's okay.
Yeah. And kudos to you for showing up for yourself today and listening to this podcast. And be sure that you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode.
Thanks for
Thank you
listening.
for listening.